Well, let me give you a little kind of background on what we're trying to do with Guild Wars 2 and why we think this is going to be something that's very appealing to both MMO gamers and non-MMO gamers. ArenaNet, as a developer, was founded to really continue to innovate in the game space. A lot of our founding members, they left Blizzard and started ArenaNet because they decided, we don't want to just keep iterating on the same gameplay over and over again. We want to be coming out with fresh, innovative gameplay decisions, and they believed, and we believe, that the gamers intrinsically want that and will reward that kind of innovation. And so, with the first Guild Wars, we innovated in a number of ways. We really tried to, go for an anti-grind philosophy. We did this by having the level cap at 20. We wanted to be able to do really great storytelling in an online RPG, and we did this with highly instanced game that allow us to have highly scripted events and personalized storytelling for your player. And then the last thing is, we decided, we're not going to do the same business model that everybody else is doing. And so with Guild Wars, I learned a new term when I came out to Gamescom. It's called buy to play, B2P. Okay, because everyone said, well, is Guild Wars free to play? And I say, no, it is not free to play. You have to buy the game, and then you can play it as long as you want. And so people have been coming to me and saying, so that means you're B2P, and I'm like, yes, I guess we're B2P.
We tend to say subscription free.
Yeah, but subscription free.
I've been a player in many MMOs which are subscription based, and you always have that feeling: am I playing enough? Am I getting my money for it, etc. Exactly. We're very low maintenance as far as that. Yeah. Buy the game, play it when you feel when you have the time, when you're grouped together, when you're you can go away for a few days, for a few weeks, whatever, and come back. We'll be here. There's no big subscription, no hassle to keep track of where your character is.
Right. And so with Guild Wars 2, we were like, we really do want. It was arguable whether the first Guild Wars was an MMO. It had a lot of aspects of an MMO, but we had actively chosen not to go in the big persistent space that most MMOs have the majority of their gameplay in. So with Guild Wars 2, we said, we want to add persistence. We want to add persistence to the game world. It'll make it a larger game world. It will create a lot of social cohesion between gamers, and it will give us a great opportunity to introduce a new type of content, which we call our dynamic event system.
What we noticed about Guild Wars 1 is that everybody would gather together in the outposts, and then they would go to the instanced areas, which were where the adventurers were, and they were on their own with about 5 people they had chosen already at the start. What we have done now with Guild Wars 2, with our persistent areas, is everybody's out there, and things are going on, and you're not required to group, and you're not in competition for the same resources. So when you see another player, it's an opportunity, as opposed to, Grady's going to, he's spawning the same point that I am, he's going to kill steal me. Right. What we're looking for is the players to come together naturally, and we have a lot of mechanics that help that. Yeah. That encourage people to play nice together.
It always seems silly to us that say you're supposedly on the same side in an MMO, but if you're both on the same quest at the same time, you're actually competing for resources. Mm-hmm. You don't want that person there. But if you were really in a fantasy world and there was a dragon, you would want as many people there helping you as possible. Mm-hmm. And so really we really felt that the promise of online worlds was getting compromised by some of the decisions people have made in the way quests are structured. And so that's one of the things our dynamic events are set up to do, is they're set up to actually reward social gameplay. And you don't have to be partied. You can just all be in the same area and they say, oh my god, there's a dragon. Well, it seems like we should all be attacking it. They all go in, and then if there are more people, the dragon scales up in difficulty, and everybody who participates gets a reward. It isn't a zero-sum game. People are not sacrificing their rewards for somebody else who's participating in the event.
So you quest in the same area as other people, but you don't have to group, and you get rewarded for all what you do.
Yeah, what you do.
Okay.
Which feels like, to somebody who's grown up on MMOs, that sounds like, wow, that's crazy talk. But to people who don't play MMOs, we've talked to a lot of people here at the show who don't, it's like, well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And it's the type of thing where you come upon the events as they are occurring, because they happen in large cycles. It's a persistent world, and actions have consequences. The centaurs are attacking the garrison. If you don't help, the garrison will be taken over. A new event will start where they're trying to retake the garrison. and then retake the garrison, another event starts. Now we have to rebuild a lot of the material that the centaurs burned down. Okay, the centaurs attacked and we drove them back. That opens up a different set of event chains, where, okay, now that we've secured this area, we need to go out and raid that armory across the way. So the story keeps going. It's not the same events all over and over again, but rather chains of events that you may encounter at different points as you move through the area. So it's not as if it's the grand starting point. It's rather a larger living world.
So, I mean, in our opinion, in the persistent world, our dynamic events replace a lot of the content that you used to get through quests, and we think that we deliver them in a much cooler, compelling, and intuitive way. It makes the world feel living. It makes you feel like I'm actually having an effect on the game world that has a real benefit to me, and it makes the gameplay more social. The other area that we chose to innovate is in Guild Wars. We did a lot of really great personal storytelling because we were a highly instanced game, and we were taking all the knowledge we took from Guild Wars and said, you know what, we can do personal stories better than anybody else in an MMO. We know how to do this, and we're basically going to take the RPG and put it back into MMORPG and allow people to have really compelling, deep personal stories within an MMO world that have direct, immediate, and permanent consequences based on their decisions.
Right. Choice is very important. When you're creating a character, as you see for the human demo area, we ask you questions. I grew up as a noble, as a commoner. I grew up on the streets. These choices that you make when you create your character have an effect in your personal story. Your noble is going to have a different flow of what's important for him than your guy off the streets. So we end up telling different stories for different. So I can be running a human elementalist. Chris can be running a human elementalist. We can have very different personal stories because of what we said at the beginning and the choices we make over the course of the game. We may have a choice between rescuing the orphanage or keeping the hospital from being burned down by brigands. And the one we choose will be safe, but the other building will be damaged. And that will be in your personal instance, and you will see that, as you keep going forward in the game. So your choices do have consequences.
Do we do titles based off of personal story choices?
Under discussion. Okay. So part of it is making sure it's all. We do have the titles within, what stages of your story that you're in, but for personal choices within it, we want to make sure we do it equal reward for each story that we have. So for the humans, we have 3 different initial stories. For the Char, we would have 3 different initial Char stories. For the Asura, we have 3 different initial stories as well. And so we have this wide variety of availability of content for people who like to say, okay, what's it like to be a Sylvari? And try playing a Sylvari for a while. Okay, what's it like to be a Char? And play a Char for a while. And that allows us to talk about the different races of Tyria and give them their own individual flavor.
So the last area that we've been talking about here at the show that we're really trying to innovate in is the combat. If you played the demo, especially at the Char level, you'll see, we're trying to do a bunch of things. One is like the worst kind of combat. We talk to a lot of different type of gamers. We talk to FPS gamers. We talk to console gamers, and we're like, so why don't you play MMOs? And they're like, you know what, your combat's really boring. And we're like, okay, it's like a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We're like, okay, we understand. So we took a hard look at MMO combat and said, how do we make this more interesting? And obviously the first thing we did is we said, you know what, at mid-high level, you should have really cool, fun skills that look awesome, they have a great effect, and if you could, you just hit them all day because they're just fun to do. Like, in our demo, we show a stomp effect, we show like a barrage effect with like all these arrows coming down.
Show a whole bunch of arrows that basically hit a ground targeted zone and blow up when they hit. That's the type of thing I want to do when I'm 35th level.
Give me a if I'm an axe warrior, give me a whirlwind attack that lets me knock people around a lot. Like
if I'm an elementalist, let me become a living tornado and go tearing across the battlefield.
See, I don't even need to show that to you. I just tell it to you. You're like, that sounds fun.
You know,
that is the kind of like those are the kind of immediate visceral action, or like it's visually cool to look at. It just sounds like it's fun to play. These are the types of skills we want to do. But we wanted to do more than that. We just said, well, we also want people to cooperate in combat. So how do we do that? So we created a couple of things. One is cross-profession combos. We've demonstrated a lot of times that, like, for example, two professions, they do not have to be partied together, they don't have to be grouped. But like an elementalist can just drop a firewall, and a warrior can look at that and go, oh, what would happen if I shot some arrows through that? And they do it, they experiment, they shoot an arrow through, and all of a sudden the arrows light up. And you have flaming arrows, and that's going to hit a target and set them on fire. Likewise, something that we haven't shown a lot of, but like you can do things like drop a poison cloud, and then a ranger or a necro can send their minions through the poison cloud, pick up the poison effect, and spread it out among your opponents.
The warrior has an ability where he creates a war banner that gives a buff for everybody in the area. Any other character can pick up that war banner and move it someplace else. So you can create items that other players can use.
And then the other part of making combat is, if you've played MMOs, when your healer dies, oh my god, like the combat comes to, or everyone runs away or zones out, or the combat comes to a dead halt. And we just felt like, you know what? That's not what they do in an FPS. That's not what they do in a combat. Like, that would just that's considered unacceptable. Like, you basically made your combat hit a brick wall. And so, two things we do is one, when you go down, when your health is 0, you don't immediately die. You go into what's called a down state. And within a down state, you have a secondary health bar that's going down. But while you're doing that, you have 4 abilities that you can use. One of them is just a straight damage attack, and if you're able to kill something on the battlefield, you'll rally and get back up.
Right.
Likewise, you can either, the warrior has an ability called Vengeance, where he'll get right back up for 15 seconds, something like 15-20 seconds, and then he can go around and revive somebody else, but he'll fall down immediately right after that. And another one is Help Me, and that's where you buff the people in your area and then send out an alert that says, hey, I'm down.
Ping that says, hey, dead guy over here,
Now we said, this is a much more action-oriented way to deal with defeat than just oh, I'm dead, I'm going back to the rest zone, and now I need to run back.
And what it is, we've now spread the ability to heal, the ability to rally, the idea of bringing people back into the game to the entire group. So it's no longer we're looking for a healer; it's everyone's got a potential for it. And if you're a person out, and we have members of our team who like to run healers. So when we said there's no healing class, they got all sad. But now they are being warriors who are healers. They're being rangers who heal. They're basically finding how to play the type of game they want to play with these new components. And the system is versatile enough that you can run this type. You can have your necromancer who heals.
Or an elementalist who heals.
And so basically player style becomes much more important. It gets us away from the old holy trinity of tanker, DPS, and healer.
Which is kind of predictable.
Yeah. And the warrior is no longer required to be a tank. The warrior can be a tank. You can buff up and get the armor, and you can have one. But you also can be a distance warrior. You can basically be the guy with the bow if you so choose, and you build your character along those lines.
This is something many people look irritated, I think. They have to get used to it.
It is the kind of thing that they will get used to. I think they'll especially the healers. They're like, oh my god,
there's no healer.
I'm not important anymore. But the fact is, my wife's a healer, so I know what healers go through. And she used to complain. She goes, yes, I know I'm a great healer, but I would like to do DPS once in a while so I could solo.
Yes.
And so, for example, I'm like, well, you know what? Now you can play an elementalist, and when you need to, you'll attune fire, and you'll be doing damage just as good as any other damage class. But when we need you as a healer, you attune water, and that's all you're going to be doing is healing and buffing it. She's still a healer, but she actually has the ability to do more in just that very narrow role.
She probably lives in her water attunement more than her fire attunement because it's a personal choice as opposed to a requirement. I'm going to be the healer. I play a lot of clerics, a lot of priests, and in MMOs that involves a lot of gauge watching, keeping track of everybody else's health bars and when I'm supposed to be throwing stuff. I'm now much more a part of the game world itself, and I'm paying attention to where everybody is on the battlefield and how we're interrelated.